Stop overgiving. Become the man she never forgets. Welcome to Ancient Stoic Secrets, where timeless wisdom meets the raw struggles of modern men. Let me start with the question. Have you ever wondered why some men leave a permanent mark on a woman's heart and mind, while others are forgotten the moment they walk away? It's almost like magic. She could be laughing with you today, planning a future together, and a few weeks later, she's cold, distant, maybe even gone. Why does this happen? Most men think the answer is to do more, give more love, more attention, more sacrifices. They believe if they pour their entire soul into her, she'll stay forever. But here's the bitter truth. Giving endlessly is not what makes a man unforgettable. Think about it. Have you ever tried to win someone's heart by proving your worth, only to watch her pull away even faster? Maybe you texted back instantly, changed your schedule for her, bent over backwards to keep her happy, and instead of being grateful, she seemed bored. It's crushing because deep down you know your love isn't the problem. The problem is control. Who holds it and how it shapes the relationship. Centuries ago, the Stoic philosophers understood something modern men have forgotten. You cannot control another person's feelings, but you can control yourself. And when you master yourself, your focus, your energy, your emotions, something extraordinary happens. The power shifts. Suddenly, you're no longer a man chasing love. You become the man she can't stop thinking about. This isn't about playing games or being manipulative. It's about living with such strength and clarity that her emotions naturally align with your presence. When you stop trying to prove yourself and start embodying your value, everything changes. Let me tell you a quick story. There was a man named Mark, a successful guy in his 40s from Chicago. He loved his wife deeply and spent years sacrificing for her. Late nights at work, surprise gifts, never saying no to her requests. At first, she adored him, but slowly her affection faded. She wasn't cruel, she simply stopped feeling that spark. Mark was confused. He thought, I've given her everything. Why isn't it enough? The answer is simple, but hard to accept. Women don't fall in love with how much you give. They fall in love with how they feel when they're with you. And when those feelings fade, her love fades with them.
Think about your own life. Have you ever tried to solve problems in a relationship by doing more? More texts, more dates, more reassurance. But the harder you tried, the further she seemed to drift. It's not because she stopped caring overnight. It's because desire can't be fueled by desperation. It's fueled by your energy, your strength, your presence. The Stoic philosophers knew this long before modern psychology. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The same is true in relationships. Her feelings are a reaction to your energy. If you're calm, grounded, and focused on your purpose, she feels it and is drawn to it. But if you're frantic, needy, and overgiving, her emotions shift away, no matter how deeply you care. Mark eventually learned this lesson the hard way. He started setting boundaries. He left work on time instead of constantly staying late to prove himself. He said no when necessary. He began investing in his own goals, his fitness, his friendships, his passions. And Lisa noticed. She didn't suddenly say, "My love has returned," but her eyes lit up again. She respected him. She desired him, not because he gave more, but because he finally stopped giving too much. Here's your wake-up call. Her love is conditional, responsive, and shaped by how you show up today. You cannot chase it. You cannot smother it. The only thing you can control is you, your growth, your discipline, your self-respect. When you stand tall, focused on your mission, you give her something no words ever could. The feeling of being with a man who doesn't need her to feel whole. And paradoxically, that's what makes her love deepen and last. So ask yourself, have you ever given everything to someone, only to watch them drift away? If so, remember this. It wasn't your love that was lacking. It was your presence that needed reclaiming.
Their feelings are like waves. They rise, they crash, and they change with the wind. And whether she realizes it or not, she will test you. Sometimes subtly, other times like a storm hitting the shore. It's not about cruelty or manipulation. It's instinct. She's searching for stability, for proof that you can hold steady when everything around her feels chaotic. Picture this. David, a 42-year-old man, recently divorced, meets Melissa at a friend's barbecue. Things start off amazing. She's warm, affectionate, texting him constantly. Then, out of nowhere, she pulls back. Her texts become short. She cancels plans. Old David would have panicked, sending 3 messages in a row, demanding answers, asking what went wrong. But this time, he does something different. He breathes. He focuses on his work, goes to the gym, spends time with friends, and lets her energy swing naturally. And guess what? Every single time, Melissa comes back, not because he chased her, but because he stayed centered. Now, let's look at another man, Mark. When his girlfriend Jessica pulled away, he spiraled. He over-explained. He begged for reassurance. The more emotional he became, the more she withdrew. Eventually, she lost interest, not because Mark didn't care, but because he cared without control. Here's the harsh truth. A man who reacts to every silence, every mood swing, every sharp word is not leading. He's following. And women don't respect a man who follows their emotional storms. They respect a man who anchors them. The Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." You can't control her moods, her actions, or her tests, but you can control your response. When she's upset, you don't fight fire with fire. When she pulls back, you don't chase. You stay calm, grounded, intentional. This doesn't mean being cold or robotic. It means mastering yourself so completely that no storm can knock you over. Imagine the ocean. The waves may thrash and roar on the surface, but deep beneath, the water is still. That's you. You are the calm beneath the chaos. Here's a simple but powerful technique. The next time she tests you, pause before you respond. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, is this reaction coming from strength or from fear? If it's fear, stay silent. If it's strength, speak slowly and clearly. 9 times out of 10, silence or a calm response will earn her respect more than any argument ever could. Think about the men who leave a lasting mark on women. They aren't the ones who match her drama with more drama. They're the ones who remain unshaken, the lighthouse in her storm. When you become that man, something incredible happens. She begins to trust you, even if she never says it out loud, because deep down, every woman longs for a man whose presence feels safe, steady, and unbreakable. So ask yourself this: are you the man who drowns in her waves, or the man who learns to surf them? Master your emotions, and you won't just change your relationships, you'll change yourself. Because true power doesn't come from controlling her, it comes from controlling you. 4. Silence speaks louder than chaos. Here's the next truth that separates ordinary men from unforgettable men. Silence is more powerful than words, especially in the heat of conflict. Every man has faced this moment. She's upset. Her voice rises, sharp and cutting. Maybe she's frustrated about something small, or maybe she's unleashing months of bottled-up emotion. Her words come like arrows, fast and relentless. And what do most men do? They fight back. They argue, defend themselves, explain, and try to win the moment. But here's the reality. The more you engage with her chaos, the more fuel you throw on the fire. Your words don't calm the storm, they feed it. And suddenly, you're no longer the grounded man she looks up to. You've been dragged into her storm, spitting right alongside her. The Stoic philosophers understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You always have the option of having no opinion. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means you refuse to get pulled into every emotional trap." Silence, when used with strength, is not weakness, it's mastery. Think about it like this. Imagine two men in the same situation. The first reacts immediately, shouting back, defending himself, explaining why she's wrong. The second man stays calm. He listens. He breathes. And when he does speak, his words are measured and few. Which man will she respect more? The answer is obvious. Here's a story to bring this to life. Ethan, a 38-year-old father of two, had a wife who often vented her stress at home. At first, Ethan would argue, trying to prove his point, but it always ended the same: slammed doors, tears, and a night spent sleeping in separate rooms. Finally, he tried something different. The next time she erupted, he stayed completely silent. He didn't walk away. He didn't glare. He simply stood there, calm and steady, like a mountain unmoved by the storm. And something surprising happened. Her voice started to crack. Her anger turned to reflection. Within minutes, she was speaking softly, even apologizing. Ethan hadn't won an argument. He had shifted the entire dynamic without saying a single word. Silence is not absence. Silence is presence without reaction. It's you standing tall, letting her chaos burn itself out while you remain unshaken. In that silence, she begins to hear her own emotions echo back at her, and more often than not, she calms herself faster than you ever could with words. At first, this approach may frustrate her. She may push harder, trying to provoke you. But the longer you hold steady, the more she respects you. Because deep down, every woman longs to feel safe in a man's presence, and a man who cannot be rattled by her storms gives her that safety. This doesn't mean you shut down or ignore her needs. It means you choose powerful restraint. When you respond only when it truly matters, your words carry weight. Your presence commands respect without you having to demand it. So the next time you face chaos, ask yourself, do I want to fight this fire? Or do I want to be the calm that extinguishes it?
Because when you master the art of silence, you don't just calm her storm, you become the lighthouse she looks to when her world feels out of control. And that kind of strength, it's unforgettable. 5. Options transform fear into desire. Here's a truth many men avoid because it feels uncomfortable. When she believes you have no other options, her respect for you slowly fades. It's not that she's cruel or ungrateful, it's human nature. When someone feels completely certain they can never lose you, they stop investing the same energy they once did. Certainty kills passion. But the moment she senses that you do have options, everything changes. Her certainty turns into curiosity, and sometimes fear. Not fear of you, but fear of losing you to another woman, another dream, another life that doesn't revolve entirely around her. That fear is what ignites her desire and makes her step back into the pursuit. Let me give you a real-life example. Richard, a 45-year-old father, spent years chasing his ex-wife's approval, even after their divorce. When he started dating again, he carried the same habits into his new relationship. He was always available, always explaining himself, always bending to fit her moods. At first, she seemed happy with the comfort and attention, but over time, the spark faded. Richard couldn't understand why. One evening, he casually mentioned that he'd been invited to a business dinner and wasn't sure if he'd go. Her reaction was immediate. Her tone shifted. Her questions became sharper. Who's going to be there? What kind of dinner is it? For the first time, she realized she wasn't the center of his entire world. That tiny seed of uncertainty lit a fire inside her. Suddenly, she saw him not as a man she had locked down, but as a prize she could actually lose. Now, notice something important here. Richard didn't brag. He didn't play games or flirt with other women just to make her jealous. He simply lived a fuller, richer life. His attention wasn't guaranteed, and that alone shifted the balance of power. Here's why this works. When your entire identity revolves around one woman, you stop being attractive. Not because she's mean, but because humans crave what's scarce and valuable. If your time and attention are always free, they lose value, just like anything else in life. But the moment she senses that you do have options, everything changes. Her certainty turns into curiosity, and sometimes fear. Not fear of you, but fear of losing you to another woman, another dream, another life that doesn't revolve entirely around her. That fear is what ignites her desire and makes her step back into the pursuit. Let me give you a real-life example. Richard, a 45-year-old father, spent years chasing his ex-wife's approval even after their divorce. When he started dating again, he carried the same habits into his new relationship. He was always available, always explaining himself, always bending to fit her moods. At first, she seemed happy with the comfort and attention, but over time, the spark faded. Richard couldn't understand why. One evening, he casually mentioned that he'd been invited to a business dinner and wasn't sure if he'd go. Her reaction was immediate. Her tone shifted. Her questions became sharper. Who's going to be there? What kind of dinner is it? For the first time, she realized she wasn't the center of his entire world. That tiny seed of uncertainty lit a fire inside her. Suddenly, she saw him not as a man she had locked down, but as a prize she could actually lose. Now, notice something important here. Richard didn't brag. He didn't play games or flirt with other women just to make her jealous. He simply lived a fuller, richer life. His attention wasn't guaranteed, and that alone shifted the balance of power. Here's why this works. When your entire identity revolves around one woman, you stop being attractive. Not because she's mean, but because humans crave what's scarce and valuable. If your time and attention are always free, they lose value, just like anything else in life. But the moment she senses that you have options, everything shifts. Her certainty turns into curiosity, and sometimes fear. Not fear of you, but fear of losing you to another woman, another dream, another life that doesn't revolve entirely around her. That fear is what ignites her desire and makes her step back into the pursuit. Let me give you a real-life example. David, a 36-year-old man, used to be the nice guy who gave everything. He would cancel plans with friends just to be with his girlfriend. He answered every call, every text, even during work meetings. At first, she seemed grateful, but over time, she became distant, even irritated. David felt confused and hurt. He thought, I'm giving her my best. Why isn't it enough? One day, something clicked. David decided to focus on himself. He started training for a marathon, working on his career, spending time with his friends again. He didn't ignore Julia, he just stopped being constantly available. Within a few weeks, Julia's energy completely changed. She started texting first. She wanted to know his plans.
When they were together, she cherished every moment. Why? Because now his presence felt earned, not assumed. This is the power of scarcity. You don't need to disappear or play manipulative games. Real scarcity comes naturally when you live a purpose-driven life. When your days are filled with meaningful work, growth, and passion, you simply don't have endless hours to sit by your phone. And that busy, fulfilled life makes you magnetic. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "The value of a man is no greater than the value of his ambitions." When your ambitions are high, you become rare. Your attention becomes something that must be deserved. And she feels that shift immediately. But here's where many men go wrong. They confuse scarcity with punishment. They disappear completely. They ignore her to teach her a lesson. That's not strength, that's immaturity. Scarcity isn't about withholding love. It's about creating a life so rich and full that she naturally has to fit into it rather than you fitting entirely into hers. Think of yourself like a book with only a few pages unread. If she knows she can flip through it any time, she'll skim carelessly. But if she only gets glimpses of your world, each page feels priceless.
So ask yourself, are you always available, always predictable? Or are you living a life that naturally creates mystery and excitement? Because when she senses that your time is precious, she'll start to chase you, not out of fear, but out of deep, burning desire. And that's when the dynamic flips. No longer are you proving yourself to her, she's proving herself to you. 7. Boundaries she can't break. Here's a truth that many men struggle to accept. A woman will test you, not because she's cruel, not because she wants to hurt you, but because deep down, she wants to know if you're a man with a spine or just another man she can bend. This is where boundaries become everything. Boundaries aren't walls you build to keep her out, and they're not punishments you use to control her. They're clear lines that protect your values, your time, and your peace of mind. And once you set them, you must hold them. Because if you don't, respect slips away faster than you can imagine. Let me tell you about Daniel. Daniel, 42, always thought being easygoing made him a great partner. Whenever a woman pushed, he gave in. If plans changed last minute, he just smiled and said, "No problem." When she crossed a line, he stayed silent because he didn't want to seem too controlling. Over time, every woman he dated lost interest. Not because they didn't like him, but because they didn't trust him to lead. Then Daniel met Claire, a woman who was beautiful, ambitious, and fiery. One evening, she canceled dinner at the very last minute, expecting him to just roll with it like he always had. But this time, Daniel stayed calm and said, "I value my time. If plans change, I'd appreciate more notice." No yelling, no guilt trips, just calm, steady clarity. And what happened? Claire didn't get angry. She didn't pull away. She leaned in. Because at that moment, Daniel showed her something rare. He respected himself enough to set a boundary. And when a man respects himself, a woman is far more likely to respect him in return. Here's why boundaries are so powerful. When you don't have them, you become like a ship with no anchor. You drift wherever the wind blows, in this case, wherever her moods and emotions take you. And the more she senses she can push without resistance, the more she loses faith in your strength. If you can't even stand up for yourself, how will you ever stand up for her? The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said,
If you don't know what port you're sailing to, no wind is favorable. Boundaries are that port. They give direction, stability, and clarity to your relationship. Here's another example. Sarah, 36, admitted something revealing about her ex. When she played games, ignoring his calls to see if he'd chase, he used to blow up her phone, desperate for her attention. But one day, he didn't. He matched her silence with calmness and simply carried on with his life. And for the first time, Sarah realized she wasn't as powerful as she thought. That quiet strength made her respect him more than any long speech or argument ever could. Here's the lesson. Boundaries aren't about rejection. They're about value. When you calmly say no when necessary, you send a message, my time, my love, my presence, they are not free commodities. That tension doesn't push her away. It pulls her closer. Because deep down, every woman wants to know she's with a man who knows where he stands. So ask yourself today, are your boundaries strong enough that she can't break them? Or do you collapse the moment she tests you? Remember, boundaries are not the end of connection. They're the beginning of a relationship built on respect. And without respect, no amount of love or attraction will ever last. 8. Respect replaces manipulation. Here's another truth most men don't see until it's too late. When a woman feels she can manipulate you, her attraction begins to fade. It doesn't happen overnight. At first, it might even look harmless, playful teasing or sudden coldness or little tests meant to stir your emotions. But beneath the surface, she's not just playing games. She's searching for answers. Can I move this man? Can I control him? Or is he strong enough to stand on his own? If every mood swing, every silent treatment, every emotional push gets a big reaction from you, she'll know exactly where your buttons are. And once she sees she can push those buttons at will, something deep inside her changes. She may still like you, she may even love you, but she won't respect you. And without respect, desire dies. Let me paint a picture for you. Jake was dating Melissa, a woman he thought was the one. Melissa was passionate, exciting, and a little unpredictable. Whenever she felt insecure, she'd pull back to see how Jake would respond. Sometimes she'd cancel plans last minute or flirt lightly with other guys at parties, not to be cruel, but to test his strength. Jake, terrified of losing her, always reacted with panic. He'd chase harder, explain more, get louder, and promise to fix whatever went wrong. The more he tried to win her back in those moments, the more she saw him as someone she could control. Eventually, she stopped taking him seriously altogether. Now, contrast that with another man. Let's call him Alex. Alex didn't fight her chaos with chaos. When Melissa tried the same tactics on him, he stayed calm. If she went silent, he didn't blow up her phone. If she tried to provoke jealousy, he simply smiled and carried on with his evening. And when she pushed too far, he looked her in the eye and said, calmly but firmly, I'm not interested in games. If you want to talk like adults, I'm here. If not, I'm going to focus on my own life. Guess which man she respected? The answer is obvious. The Stoic philosophers knew this long before modern psychology. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." If your emotions control you, you're not free, you're a puppet. And a puppet can never lead. A woman doesn't want to feel like she's dating a man she can pull on strings. She wants to feel like she's standing beside someone solid, someone she cannot replace. Here's the paradox. When you refuse to play the game ends. At first, she might push harder. Old patterns don't die quietly. But when she realizes her tactics don't work, something remarkable happens. Her manipulative behavior fades, and respect takes its place. Because deep down, women don't crave control. They crave certainty. They want to know that the man they're with won't be swayed by every mood, every test, every storm. Most men get this wrong. They think demanding respect means shouting, threatening, or giving ultimatums. But that's not strength. That's insecurity wearing armor. Real strength is quiet. It's in the boundaries you hold, the calmness you keep when she's emotional, the discipline to walk away when something violates your values.
Think about it. When you remain unshaken, you don't just earn her respect. You build a foundation for lasting love. Because now, she's not focused on pushing your buttons. She's focused on being her best self beside you. Games fade, honesty grows, and the relationship transforms from manipulation into true connection. So ask yourself today, are you the man she tests and plays with, or the man she trusts and respects? The answer isn't in what she says, it's in how you show up every single time. 9. The pride she secretly craves. Here's something most men overlook. Every woman wants to feel proud of the man she's with. She might never say it directly, but deep down, she longs to admire you. She wants to look at you and think, I chose well. Other women would be lucky to have him, but he's mine. This feeling of pride fuels attraction more than gifts, compliments, or endless reassurance ever could. But here's the twist. She won't simply give you that pride. You must earn it through the life you live and the man you become. Take Daniel, for example. For years, his relationship revolved entirely around Rachel, his girlfriend. If she wanted something, he dropped everything to make it happen. If she was upset, he rushed to fix it before she even asked. On the surface, it looked like devotion, but beneath it all, Rachel slowly stopped admiring him. Why? Because a man who lives only to please her stops being a man she can look up to. When Daniel finally woke up, he did something radical. He stopped apologizing for having his own dreams. He started training again, rebuilding his body and mind. He set goals for his career and refused to compromise them just to keep Rachel comfortable. At a dinner party with friends, Rachel overheard others complimenting Daniel on his discipline and ambition. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. Her eyes lit up with a mix of pride and desire. She felt chosen by a man others respected, a man who didn't need her approval to define his worth. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This is the essence of masculine pride. It's not loud. It doesn't shout for validation. Real pride is silent, steady, and earned. It shows through your consistency, your self-respect, and your actions. Many men confuse pride with arrogance. Arrogance screams, "Look at me." Pride whispers, "I know who I am." One is built on insecurity, the other on inner strength. And women can feel the difference instantly. When you live with authentic pride, something magical happens. You don't have to convince her to admire you. She naturally does. She talks about you to her friends, not because you asked her to, but because she can't help it. She feels lucky to stand beside a man who stands tall on his own. Here's the real challenge. Stop chasing her admiration and start living a life that's truly admirable. Instead of asking, "Does she love me enough?" ask yourself, "Am I living in a way that I can love and respect myself?" Because when you focus on becoming a man who inspires his own pride, she will feel it too. And that feeling, it's one she will never forget and never want to lose. 10. Becoming the man she can't forget. Some men fade quietly from a woman's life. Weeks or months later, their names barely cross her mind. But then, there's a man who never truly leaves, even long after the relationship ends. He's the man she thinks about when she can't sleep, the man who comes to mind when she hears a certain song or walks by a place they once visited together. He's the man she can't finish. Here's the surprising part. It has nothing to do with chasing her, blowing up her phone, or trying to win her back. It's not about begging, proving, or forcing her to see your worth. It's about who you are during the relationship and especially after it ends. What unsettles a woman isn't losing a man she can replace. It's realizing she had someone rare, someone she may never find again. She remembers how calm he was under pressure, how he stayed steady when she was emotional, how his silence spoke louder than any argument could. She remembers that he didn't crumble when things got hard. He kept walking forward with a quiet fire in his heart. Let me tell you a story. Michael, 39, went through a painful breakup with a woman he deeply loved. She expected him to beg, to chase, to fall apart without her. But instead, Michael chose a different path. He focused on rebuilding his life, getting in the best shape of his life, starting a side business he had always dreamed of, and reconnecting with friends and family he had neglected. He didn't do it to make her jealous. He did it because he refused to let her absence define him. Months later, she saw him at a mutual friend's event. He wasn't cold, but he wasn't overly warm either. He was simply present, calm, confident, and thriving. And in that moment, she felt a deep ache. Not because she missed the relationship, but because she realized he didn't need her to shine. Her absence hadn't broken him. It had made him stronger. And that realization burned itself into her memory. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "He who is brave is free." True freedom comes when your joy, your mission, your identity are not tied to another person's approval. When you reach that place, you become unforgettable, not because you tried to be, but because your energy is so rare that it leaves a permanent mark. This doesn't mean you stop loving deeply. A Stoic man can love with his whole heart, but he never loses himself in that love. When the relationship ends, he doesn't chase closure or beg for another chance. He rebuilds, he rises, he becomes more. And here's the paradox. The moment she sees that her leaving didn't destroy you, that you're not a man who collapses without her, you become immortal in her mind. Even if she moves on, even if she builds a new life, there will always be nights when she thinks of you, the man who stood strong when others would have fallen apart. So don't aim to be the man who fights to stay at any cost. Don't aim to be the man who lives for her validation. Aim to be the man who lives so fully, so authentically, that even when she closes the book, the story still echoes. Because that's the man women never forget. And more importantly, that's the man you will always respect when you look in the mirror. 11. Building a legacy beyond her.
Up to this point, we've talked about how to navigate love, attraction, and relationships with strength and clarity. But here's the deeper truth, one that goes beyond women, beyond dating, beyond any single relationship. Your ultimate purpose as a man is not to win her heart, it's to build your legacy. Relationships are chapters in your story, not the whole book. Too many men forget this. They make a woman their entire world, pouring all of their time and energy into her approval, while their dreams gather dust in the corner. And when she leaves, because sometimes she will, they feel like their whole life has collapsed. But here's the thing. She was never supposed to be your life. She was supposed to join it. Think about the great men of history: Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. These men weren't remembered for how many lovers they had. They're remembered for their impact, their philosophies, their contributions to the world. Their relationships were part of their journey, yes,
but they never lost sight of their higher mission. Let me share a modern story. James, a 41-year-old architect, had spent years in a toxic cycle with his girlfriend, Mia. Every argument consumed him. Every mood swing derailed his focus. His once thriving career began to crumble because he was pouring all of his energy into fixing the relationship. Then one day, standing in the empty office of a failed project, he asked himself a life-changing question. What am I leaving behind if this all ended tomorrow? That single question lit a fire in James. He started rebuilding, not just his career, but his identity. He joined a local mentorship program to teach design to underprivileged kids. He launched a personal project he'd been putting off for years. And slowly, he became a man whose life had meaning beyond whether Mia stayed or left. Ironically, as James grew into his purpose, Mia's behavior shifted. She stopped testing him. She started leaning in, not because he chased her, but because she could feel his gravity. This is the essence of stoic living. A relationship should add to your life, not replace it. When you wake up every morning with a mission, whether it's building a business, mastering a craft, serving your community, or leaving a legacy for your family, you stop being reactive. You stop needing her to validate you, because you've already validated yourself through action. Here's the paradox. When you prioritize your purpose, you actually become more attractive. Why? Because women are naturally drawn to men who have direction. A man who knows where he's going is magnetic. He doesn't need to prove himself. His life itself is proof. Ask yourself this: if every woman in your life vanished tomorrow, what would remain? Would you be proud of the world you've built? Would your story still be worth telling? The Stoics believed in memento mori, remembering that life is fleeting. One day, all of this will end. So don't waste your precious time begging for someone to stay. Use that time to create something lasting, a legacy that outlives heartbreak, rejection, and even you. When you live this way, women stop being the center of your universe. They become companions on a journey much bigger than both of you. And ironically, this is when love becomes the most powerful, because it's rooted in freedom, not fear. So take this as your final challenge. Stop living for her approval. Start living for your mission. Because when you focus on building a life so meaningful, so full, so unstoppable, you don't just become unforgettable to her. You become unforgettable to the world. Your journey starts now. So here we are. We've walked through truths most men never get to hear. Truths about love, respect, power, and ultimately, about yourself. But knowing these truths isn't enough. The real transformation comes when you live them. Think about everything we've covered. The strength to master your emotions, the discipline to protect your attention, the courage to set boundaries, and the vision to build a life so full of purpose that no one person can ever define you. This isn't just about women. It's about becoming the kind of man who cannot be shaken, no matter what storms life brings. A man who inspires respect, not through words, but through presence. A man who leaves a legacy, not just memories. But let me ask you this. What will you do next? Will you let these ideas fade into the background like another video you watched and forgot? Or will you take action, even if it's just one small step today, to start shaping the man you were always meant to be? If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button to let me know this video gave you value. Share it with another man who needs to hear these truths, maybe a friend, a brother, or someone silently struggling with the weight of relationships and expectations. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, Ancient Stoic Secrets. Because here, every week, we dive deeper into the wisdom and psychology that most men will never discover. Lessons that can give you an edge, not just in love, but in every part of life. Remember, Your journey doesn't end when this video does. Every decision you make from this moment forward is a chance to step into your power or slip back into old habits. Choose the path that challenges you. Choose growth over comfort. Choose to become the man no woman and no one can ever forget. Thank you for watching, for showing up for yourself, and for walking this path with me. Stay disciplined, stay grounded, and I'll see you in the next video, ready to take the next step together.